What's going on, y'all? TheBrandonBrownson here with another episode of Theory Addict. Now, first things first, I want to be one of the first people to wish you guys a happy new year. 2015 should be a big year for the channel, should be a big year for me, will hopefully be a very big year for you, but should also be a very, very big year for Theory Addict. So I had a few ideas on what I wanted the next episode of Theory Addict to be, but then I spent some time on the old Reddits and found this theory. So today, we're talking about Bob's Burgers. Per usual, I've got a few things to say before we start the episode. First of all, I did not write this theory. I found this theory on r/fan theories on Reddit. It was written by Gear Girl, and I will leave a link in the description so you can read it for yourself, maybe give it an upvote, give the theory some love. Second of all, unless otherwise stated, I do not believe any of the theories that I read on this show. I do this for entertainment purposes, not educational purposes. Last of all, let's try and keep the comment section civil, folks. I don't mind a little bit of healthy discussion and debate, but if I see any flame wars down there, I reserve the right to delete comments and block users. Basically, just don't be a dick and we'll be fine. With all of that said, let's jump right into it. At the very beginning of the series, we learn that the store is on their 4th reopening. We also learn that the restaurant has been there for at least a few years from the exposition Bob gives us in the opening scene. So, why are they having a grand reopening? Because, due to a series of unfortunate accidents, Bob is driven further into insanity and hallucinates each of the children to deal with each accident. Linda's death is actually what caused Bob to open the restaurant in the first place, years ago, which is why it's located next to the funeral home. Bob, grief-stricken, opened the restaurant and began hallucinating Linda. This also explains why Mort frequents the restaurant. He's befriended Bob and checks in on him to make sure he's doing okay. This establishes that Bob is a loving, caring husband, but has trouble letting go and moving on with his life. After running the restaurants for a few years as a single dad, the restaurant suffers a series of accidents in rapid succession, killing the rest of the Belcher family, leaving Bob alone and hallucinating them in a subconscious effort to return to normalcy, and because this was the same coping mechanism his brain used to deal with the death of his wife. The accidents occur in the following order. First, there was a fire. Then, rats, and finally, a telephone pole falls onto the storefront. These kill off the children from youngest to oldest. Fire represents Luis, a psychotic who most likely set the fire for whatever reason. Bob actually mentions this in passing when telling Tina that she's the girl cook because he doesn't trust Luis with the fire. After her death, Bob starts imagining her, like Linda, but unlike Linda, he imagines Luis with her character flaw, but magnified. She was probably an energetic child when alive that Bob had trouble reeling in, so after the death, this is one thing that Bob believes is her defining characteristic. He does this with the other children as well. Jean dies next. Like Luis starting the fire, Jean caused the rat infestation. During the process of collecting and releasing the rats as a joke, he's bitten and succumbs to infection. Again, Bob reimagines him as a coping mechanism, but focuses on and magnifies his defining characteristic. He's a jokester, but from Bob's perspective, his jokes are extremely weird and off-putting. On top of that, Bob imagines him with ADD because, like Luis, he was probably more of a normal, energetic kid, but with Bob's imagination, that energy is magnified as well. Tina is the last to die, and hers is the most horrific. She was standing in the window, mopping the floor, when the telephone pole crashed through the window, electrocuting her. Bob was cleaning the grill at the end of the day and witnessed her die, but because she was electrocuted, she remained upright and twitching until the emergency responders could arrive. This is why Tina has a thing for zombies. Her personality is completely unlike the other children because she has experienced the deaths of the rest of her family alongside her father. She doesn't understand why Bob continues to act like Linda, Jean, and Louise are still alive, and doesn't share in his hallucinations. She's also become increasingly depressed with each death in the family. She never gets to learn how to cope in a healthy way, because all her father does is reimagine a lost family member to avoid moving through the stages of grief. This is why Tina's personality is so flat and awkward. Bob doesn't understand why she didn't see or interact with the rest of the family, so he assigns her a personality that is very weird and disturbing, again, magnifying it as her defining characteristic. Tina wears glasses because she's the only one in the family to recognize Linda, Jean, and Louise's deaths. Actually, the first 3 episodes plainly show that Bob is insane. They all portray how Bob deals with death. The first episode, Bob has to experience the hate from Hugo, whom Linda turned away in favor of Bob. After learning Bob's restaurant is in his jurisdiction, he shuts the restaurant down with the accusation that they're serving human flesh, symbolizing Hugo holding Bob accountable for Linda's death. The second episode clearly shows Bob is insane. He spends several days in the false walls of the restaurant. This is where Teddy enters the picture. Teddy actually helps run the restaurant and, like Mort, tries to help Bob cope to include seeing the family. This is why Teddy always looks so tired. He's run ragged looking after Bob. In this episode, he fails a bit as Bob escapes to the false walls, but again indulges Bob's fantasy and lets him stay there. Teddy is actually running the restaurant while Bob is going nuts and calls in Linda's parents to get him out of the wall. Finally, the third episode deals with Melissa, the cow that shows Bob feels guilty for the deaths of his wife and kids. In this episode, Bob is shown to begin moving through the stages of grief. He makes remarkable progress throughout the episode, though time lapses at the end when Melissa dies in a near-miss accident, almost getting hit by a car. This event triggers Bob's coping mechanisms again. He even has a full hallucination and talks to Melissa while sitting on a pink cloud in heaven. The rest of the series is actually showing Bob as he moves through the grieving process, which is why we see Bob as the most normal person in this series. We experience the series through Bob's eyes, and in it, he believes he's normal. Well folks, that about does it for another episode of Theory Addict. Once again, I did not write this theory. There will be a link down there in the description box. Unless otherwise stated, I do not believe this or any other theory I review, and if you're gonna comment, please, don't be a dick about it. As always, check out all the links down there in the description down below. If you want to help monetarily support the channel, you can either go to my page where I have a donation link set up, you can buy a t-shirt, or you can download my albums. Of course, you can get my albums 100% for free if you want. Either way, links down there in the description down below. Follow me on all the social media sites, go join the Chameleon Couch Productions Facebook fan group for the latest updates on the channel and the first chance to see all of my videos. Check out all the other sexy channels down there, but hey, most importantly, remember to like, comment, subscribe. The Brandon Brownson, signing out.